But another interesting connection that you talk about in the book is this guy Cornwallis, who was fighting on behalf of British in Americas, and then eventually ends up surrendering to Washington, comes back home, and they immediately send him back to India. And this time he's all determined to prove his mettle as a army commander, and ends up winning some key battles again, thanks to like this shrewd alliances with putting people, setting them against each other, and he has a series of victories here.
So it's really interesting. So he loses America, and the East India Company nonetheless recruits him because they think that he must have learned lessons from fighting the Americans. And in a sense, he has, because he makes several important changes to the law, and some of them we should be very grateful for, because what he realizes is that the Brits are being kicked out of America, not by the Native Americans, but by the Brits who went native in America. So he begins to enact legislation to make sure that there is never a powerful settler class in Britain, that there's never a powerful settler class in India. And so he passes laws that no Brits can own property for more than, I think, 5 years.
And these are the company laws, not the...
Yeah, the East India Company. So what happens is that all Brits, for the rest of the British history in India, have to rent their properties. And there's special exceptions for things like indigo plantations and later tea plantations. But it means that basically every Brit who comes out to India goes back to England at the end of their tenure. And so you get these towns such as Tunbridge Wells and Cheltenham, into which the East India Company and the Raj officials retire. Or if they're less successful and can't afford those places, they go to Australia. And therefore, it means that in 1947, when the Raj finally comes to a close, that the Brits are able to walk out of India without barely a shot being fired at them. Do you know how many Brits are killed in 1947? 7. 1.5 million Indians die in partition, in that horrific mutual genocide partition. But the Brits get out without any casualties. Compare that to the French in Algeria. The French in Algeria bought land, settled down. The Pied Noir farmed this land, and that was their identity. That was who they were. They became settled in Algeria. So when the Algerian Civil War takes place, these guys resist. They fight bloodily. There is a massive insurgency. There is terrorism. If you ever see the Battle of Algiers, one of the great movies of all time, this is all laid out. And I think it's 5 million French die. Well, there's 5 million casualties in both sides in the Algerian Civil War.
I see. So what you're saying is, let's say if this legislation didn't happen and Brits were owning land and settling in here and so on, over a period of time, it would have created a deep entrenchment here.
Exactly.
Which would have made things even more complicated.
I'm not absolving the Brits at all for what they did to India. But one thing they didn't do was it never became a settler colony. You never had families passing down land generation to generation. You did have families joining the East India Company, generation to generation, mine included. But you never had what you had, say, in Ireland or in Australia or in America, which is a settler colony where they buy great chunks of land, settle it, and take it as their own. So the Brits retire. And that is a crucial difference that saved India a mass. I mean, 1947 would have had a very different history if you'd had, say, 100,000 Brits with farms. They didn't want to leave. And were defending it, like in Rhodesia, like in Northern Ireland. It's only in the end, in 1857, that we've been talking about how improbable it is that 95% of the sepoys of the British Army in India are Indians. This finally turns in 1857 when the rumor begins to spread that the East India Company is thinking of turning India into a Christian country, that they're going to be mass conversion. This was never policy. But there are a few British evangelical Christians who are bashing their Bible at their troops and reading Bible to them on parade and this sort of thing. And this is enough to make the rumor spread. And it is, having defeated Marathas, defeated Tipu Sultan, defeated the Mughals, Siraj and Dalrymple, one after another these enemies. In the end, it's their own sepoys who take them on in 1857. And it is so nearly a major victory for the Sepoys. And again, there's all these things that just go wrong at the end.
Right. But that's probably another story.
Another story.
At Sparks, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to Sparks on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.